Okay, it is Friday, November 14th, 2025. It is the Prospect Weekly Roundup. We do this every Friday. And with me today, we have co-founder and editor Bob Kuttner. How you doing, Bob?
Doing okay.
Well, I wanted to start with a topic that you know a thing or two about, mainly because it involves a chief antagonist of yours over the years. And we just posted this over at prospect.org. And I thought we'd just do that right away. We're going to get into the shutdown and the politics of it in a minute. But just over at the Prospect, we have, and we'll put this in the chat as well, a little scoop about Larry Summers. So Larry Summers, as everyone knows, is he was Treasury Secretary under Clinton. He was head of the National Economic Council under Obama. He was kind of the arguer in chief during the Biden administration. He was out there basically talking down the Biden administration at every turn. And what we now know is that he was a good pal of Jeffrey Epstein's. And we actually already knew this. There were stories going back a couple of years about his frequent communications with Epstein, including trying to get his wife a grant that Epstein was facilitating. But this week, there were more documents that came out about Jeffrey Epstein. It was a bunch of emails from his Gmail account. And Summers was in communication with Epstein right on up to right around his arrest in 2019. This is years after he was, seen as seriously problematic. Now, the scoop we have at the site is that even while we already knew about all this stuff prior to this week, Larry Summers was he's a senior distinguished fellow at the Center for American Progress, which is kind of one of the key center left think tanks in Washington. And they were putting together basically their version of the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025. They were calling it even Project 2029, whether that was an internal name or going to be the official name, whatever. And Summers was tapped to be the economic policy lead on this Project 2029 program, even after we knew everything we knew about Larry Summers, both politically and I guess his personal life. And now, obviously, this comes out and throws a wrench into it. We got a CAP spokesman to say that they are reviewing the disclosures of this week, and they'll have something later to say at a different time. But he was very involved in the forming of an economic policy plank that to give to the next president. And he even signed off on a housing policy paper that CAP is going to release next week. So, Bob, as someone who's been tangling with Larry Summers for a long time, I want to get your thoughts.
Well, it's a twofer in that it sort of outs Cap one more time, as if we needed to know this one more time, as sort of the Clinton administration in exile. This is not just center left. This is pretty damn centrist. I mean, there are a few good people who work there, but its center of gravity, is all the things that Clinton and Summers did wrong on deregulation, and all the things that Obama and Summers did wrong on dragging their feet in getting us beyond the financial collapse and the Great Recession. And so in 2020, I did a long investigative piece for the Prospect called Falling Upward, reviewing the entire career of Larry Summers. And if you take it step by step by step, he has been wrong, proven wrong on just about everything. And
And
let
by
me
the
take
way, that link to that is in the chat. So if you're watching live, you can access that. But go ahead.
so to do it chronologically, I mean, Larry was the guiding force behind the financial deregulation of derivatives and of a lot of other stuff that then led to the speculation
Right.
that then led to the collapse of 2008. So then, having brought us the collapse, he's brought in by Obama to deal with the collapse. And he lowballs the amount of money that we need for the stimulus. He is on the wrong side of the question of how do we clean out the big banks whose conflicts of interest, whose corruption deepened the collapse and helped cause the collapse by conflicts of interest in the kind of derivative securities they peddled. And instead of cleaning out the big banks, Summer's strategy was let's prop up the big banks. Let's keep incumbent management there. Let's make sure that no shareholders lose any money, even though everybody else in America is losing money. And then, to add insult to injury, in 2009, when the economy is still far from out of recession and millions of people are suffering, Larry and the budget people decide that, okay, we've turned the corner and the summer of 2009 is going to be recovery summer. And now we need to pivot to deficit reduction.
Right.
And that just prolonged the agony and it foamed the runway for Donald Trump. And one little detail in the um, fall of 2009, Nancy Pelosi very heroically tried to get a second stimulus package through Congress. It very narrowly passed the House, and the Obama White House, led by Summers as the head of the economic team, made sure that the Senate would kill it. And then to add insult to injury, David, and you alluded to this, in order to kind of vindicate himself, having lowballed the kind of stimulus we needed when Joe Biden, facing a similar economic downturn that could have been a depression, uh, gave us an adequate stimulus. Summers trashed Biden. And you would have thought that that would burn his last bridge to the Democratic Party establishment.
That's right.
But this guy's got 9 lives, and here he is again.
Yeah, I think the ninth life might have just run out. But uh, yes, I mean, I think that's a very key point here. So, you know, the fact that he burned that bridge, that he was really the chief Democrat that was pointed to by Republicans saying
Yeah,
even distinguished Larry Summers disagrees with what Biden's doing and
his
how
Republican
Biden's
talking, he was
destroying the
writing
economy.
Republican talking points.
Essentially, yes. And the fact that Cap would welcome him back in the tent, not only just as a sinecure, but in a real important policy-making kind of position where he would be leading the economic response that the next Democratic president would be handed in 4 years' time. It's insane that they would have done that even without the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. And we should elaborate on what's in these emails.
Well, I wanted to do that.
Yeah,
So the sheer igginess of the one email where he's married, he's married,
right.
and he's got this girlfriend on the side, and she won't go to bed with him. And he's asking Jeffrey Epstein for advice on how to get this girlfriend to go to bed with him.
That's like the onion, right? It's like you're asking Jeffrey
Good.
Epstein for dating advice.
Yeah. Well, it's sophomoric. I mean, if you read the text of the
Yeah, he's a
emails,
10-year-old. He sounds like a 10-year-old, or maybe a 15-year-old or
12 year,
whatever.
yeah.
Uh,
He
yeah,
sounds like the nerdy kid in 10th grade who can't get a date.
right.
He's asking Jeffrey Epstein how to bed down this mistress who won't go to bed with him. So,
And then there's another one that sort of recapitulates the scandal that got him kicked out of the presidency
well,
of
that's what I was
Harvard.
going to say. It
Yeah,
it chimes with his contemptuousness of women,
right.
women as not the intellectual equals of men. And you read that exchange with Epstein, and you say, well, this rings a vague bell. And then you remember one of the main reasons why Summers got rousted out of Harvard.
Yeah.
Well, he's still
Uh,
at Harvard, but he got rousted out of the
the
presidency.
presidency, that's correct. And so, it's not just Harvard and it's not just Cap. We actually have in this piece a long litany of whether it's think tanks or private businesses that Summers is associated with, including OpenAI, which is the makers of ChatGPT, and media outlets. He's a contributing opinion writer for the New York Times, a contributing writer for Bloomberg. This really needs to be the end, right? In across the pond, they strip Prince Andrew of his title, right? The least we can do here in the United States of America is make sure that Larry Summers isn't writing economic policy for a major
Well,
political party.
you asked the question, why does he have 9 lives? And I think the answer has something to do with the political economy of capitalism. That
Mm.
as long as the Democratic Party is taking its economic advice from Larry Summers, the oligarchy has nothing to fear.
Yeah,
Larry Summers is the oligarchy's kind of Democrat. And so it's not just about Summers, it's about the dynamics of power in the United States and the corruption of the
right.
Democratic Party and that whole larger story.
And how if you are in that club, if you are inside that tent, there's nothing you can do to get you kicked out of it. Whereas
Maybe
if
there is.
I mean, we'll see if there's nothing you can do. This would prove that rule. Whereas if you're Zoran Mamdani and you call somebody auntie and they're not technically your aunt, you can get kicked out of the club, right? So, it's a real discrepancy in terms of who matters and who doesn't. The
You
inside
might call it a double standard.
that would be a double standard. I remember, in Elizabeth Warren's book, she said she had this dinner with Larry Summers where she said, you can either be on the inside or you can be on the outside. And the only way you're on the inside is you can never criticize another insider. And this is that dynamic. As long as he doesn't, although it's bizarre because he criticized a sitting Democratic president, another insider. He broke that rule, and we still welcome him back in the tent.
And it's not
So,
as if Joe Biden was a dangerous rat. I mean, Joe Biden was not Zoran Mamdani. So, and yet he was too left wing for Larry Summers.
yeah. All right. So that's the scoop. It's over at prospect.org. We'll see how this develops and transpires. And I mean, the larger point, I don't want to distract from the larger point of these Epstein releases that were made by the House Oversight Committee this week, which is the fact that Donald Trump is all over them as well. And that Epstein is saying that he knew about the girls, that he was with one of his girls for hours. We now believe that to be Virginia Giuffre, who killed herself this year. Obviously, this is a continued absolute four-alarm fire for Donald Trump, who just an hour or so ago came out and said, I think the Justice Department should investigate Larry Summers and should investigate Bill Clinton and should investigate, and it was scrupulously tailored to all the Democrats who are wrapped up in this scandal and not him. So he is flailing once again to find a way to not talk about this with regard to himself by now saying, it's just an extreme version of whataboutism, like what about these other people? And the truth is that Democrats are kind of playing into this by putting this guy in policy positions. And the answer should be, let's burn it all down. Anyone
Well, and
associated with this guy needs to go.
also, if Democrats finally throw Larry Summers under the bus and Republicans don't throw Donald Trump under the bus, that's another telling discrepancy.
That's right. That's right. And so, we'll keep following this. Obviously, this week, and this segues us into the shutdown, but this week, Adelita Grijalva, who was the 218th vote for a discharge petition to release all of the Epstein files that the Justice Department has. Now, what the House Oversight Committee released this week, which was 20,000 documents, came from the Epstein estate. So it was a different set of files. The Justice Department has other files that they have not released yet. And now there's a discharge petition, which means the House will have to vote, and I think that vote's coming next week,
Next week.
on release of the Epstein files.
Yeah.
And the indications are that dozens of Republicans are going to vote for this because it's a horrible vote to have on your record to say, let's not release the Epstein
It's the
files.
gift that keeps on giving.
That's right. So, anyway, the reason that the House was back in session, they're an actual chamber of the legislature, is and therefore, you know, swearing in Grijalva, is that there was a deal this week to end the shutdown. And it dates back to over the weekend, and you really kicked this off with a piece that we ran on Saturday, talking about what was happening inside the Senate Democratic Caucus. Now, to set the scene, the shutdown was something like 6 weeks old at this point. Democrats were holding out for some change to extend the Affordable Care Act healthcare subsidies that are set to expire at the end of the year. The Republicans were unwilling to do any changes to that, and it was unclear sort of where we were at in terms of what was going to break this cycle. And that leads to what you wrote about. So tell us about that.
So the little scoop that I had on Saturday, I learned that at the Thursday meeting of the Democratic Caucus,
This is
it
last Thursday, a week
last Thursday,
ago,
yeah,
Thursday.
it became clear that Schumer was not playing it straight with either side. So Schumer's posture was,
Well,
I'm
let's say what
holding the
those
line.
sides are. Let's say what those sides are. So there were
Those,
the vast majority of the caucus was hunkered down, especially in the wake of election victories,
right,
ready to continue to fight. It looked like that there was more cracks happening on the Republican side than the
right, exactly.
Democratic side. But there was a small group of Democratic senators who were trying to negotiate surrender, essentially. So pick up the story then.
Well, yeah. So Schumer had, for public purposes, his posture was, I am holding the line. I am against any kind of surrender. I'm with the majority of the Senate Democratic Caucus. But privately, he had been encouraging the so-called Gang of Eight to keep negotiating with the Republicans to see if they could make some kind of a deal. And of course, the deal that they ultimately made was basically voting to reopen the government in exchange for nothing meaningful. I mean, they did get a few crumbs. One of the crumbs was that they would get a separate vote in December in the Senate on extending the Affordable Care Act tax
Right.
subsidies, but with no guarantee that there would even be in the House a vote. And a few other crumbs in the form of people would get their back pay, which they probably would have gotten anyway,
Right.
and there would be no more layoffs. But the deal only holds for most of the government through January.
Right.
So they basically caved in, split the Democratic caucus in exchange for nothing, and the Republicans, crowed all the way to the bank.
Right.
Except that, huh. So then I wrote a kind of a morning after story saying, well, actually, maybe this isn't so bad if Democrats have the wit to play it well. And the good thing about Epstein is that it knocked the Democratic capitulation off the front pages very quickly. And the other thing, if you want to be an optimist, you can say the following. And what I did was I kind of hedged my bets by saying that this could actually work out well for the Democrats if the Democrats play it right. So here's the optimistic scenario. The Republicans now own it. The Democrats get two more whacks at the pinata, once in December when they get a vote, and the Republicans are going to be under more pressure to restore the tax subsidies for the ACA. Then they get another whack at the pinata in January when they got to do the deal all over again for much of the government. And I think here's the other point. I think by elevating the issue of health care and making that a kind of a test, the Democrats put the Republicans on the defensive going forward in a way that's a little bit misleading if we're going to be intellectually honest about it, because only about 7% of the American public get their health care through the Affordable Care Act. But because of a lot of other factors that we've written about in the prospect, healthcare costs are going up for almost everybody, unless you're a
Yeah.
member of Congress. And I think what's going to happen is because the Democrats have launched healthcare costs going up as a litmus issue, and my health premiums go up 25%, even if I'm not under Obamacare, the whole thing is so confusing in terms of cause and effect that I'm very likely to blame Republicans. So
Right.
it's given Democrats a cudgel going into the election year, and Democrats may be unified in spite of themselves
Yeah. Well,
themselves
I want
on
to,
the
I,
next round.
that's right. So I want to take all of that in kind, but I want to start by going back to Schumer because he was, as you say, trying to play both sides of the fence in a way that really was far too cute. So to believe Schumer, you have to believe one of two. I mean, only one of two things is possible with respect to Schumer. Either he was intentionally misleading his base and collaborating with these other Senate Democrats on the side, getting constant updates, as you say, or he has no control of his caucus, and his caucus was cutting deals without him involved in any way. And both of those look really bad for a leader, right? I mean, it's not like it's good. Like the alibi of I didn't know that these people were conniving behind my back is really bad for a leader. Like that's
Right.
not something you want to say out loud.
He's done,
So
he's damned either way. He's damned if he knew and he's damned if he didn't know. And of course, in taking stock of all the good things that might come out of this, one of the best things is we get rid of Schumer, that
yeah.
he's probably not going to be elected majority leader next time.
Well, I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, certainly you've had a lot of groups come out and say Schumer has to go. He has to step down as leader. You have a lot of House Democrats who have said that he has to step down as leader. And you have Senate candidates who have a chance of winning also saying that. And it's Zach Walls and it's really all of the Senate Democratic candidates who aren't endorsed by Schumer. Those are the ones who are saying that. And maybe some of them win. So, you know, I do think that he will have a hard time next year around this time when, the leadership elections are put forward. The logical choice to succeed him as leader there's a problem with it. It's to me, it's Chris Murphy. He's been the one who's been out front saying, look, we just told our base that we were fighting and we reaped all these rewards in the election. And if we cave now, we're going to lose all that goodwill and support. And that's exactly what happened. They did cave right after winning the election. So Murphy seems more attuned to to sort of what Democrats want. The problem is that the number two right now in the Senate Democratic leadership is Dick Durbin, and he's retiring. He also voted for the bill, by the way. But he's retiring, but there is an heir apparent, and that heir apparent is a guy named Brian Schatz, who's a senator from Hawaii, and he happens to be best buddies with Chris Murphy. So the idea that Chris Murphy would jump in, force a fight now, and leapfrog over his best friend, I think would be a difficult thing to get done. And so, the more likely scenarios he would maybe put forward Schatz, but Schatz is a member of the leadership. Back in March, he was one of the guys who voted to cave on government funding. Schatz was a vote on that. And I don't know that how different his leadership style would be from Schumer's, frankly.
Question is how angry the median caucus member is about this
Right.
and whether they're going to stay angry. And Schumer has done a number of other things that really annoy center leftists and progressives, like intervening in primaries.
Yeah.
And the case of the Maine primary, where Plattner seems primed to clean Janet Mills's clock, and it was Schumer who
Yeah.
enticed Mills into the race. She's 77, and who's getting her all kinds of money, and Plattner is still primed to win that primary. So,
Well, maybe. I mean, we're seeing kind of conflicting polling
no,
numbers now,
oh,
but the
I want.
last poll I saw showed that Plattner beats Collins and Mills doesn't. So I thought
Well,
that was
and
interesting.
I also want to flag. This is very interesting. We ought to do some investigation of this. Emily's List did this push poll, which was very disingenuous. And I just wonder if this is Emily's List being feminist or if they were in cahoots with Schumer. But so Emily's List does this push poll
Right,
where they say, if you knew that Graham Plattner had said this on
right,
social media, would that make you less likely to vote for?
right.
Well, of course, the answer is yes. It's a very contrived poll. And then they put it out, and Politico, which has all the enterprise of a good urinal, they just take leaks,
Hmm.
uh, says, "Oh my God, Plattner's in trouble." Well, come on. So the establishment is
Yeah. And that's Schumer driven as well. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a whole
yeah.
thing aside from his leadership in dealing with Trump with regards to how he handles Senate races and tries to get his kept people in charge. And by the way, this is one reason why no Senate Democrat has come out and said in so many words, we think we need new leadership. There is a mechanism, and we reported on this week. There's a mechanism by which any single senator can force a vote on leadership and get a caucus vote within 7 days. And nobody has done that. And the reason is that this is how Schumer operates with respect to primaries. And he gets his guy in elected. And so right now, what you have in the Senate Democratic caucus is a bunch of people who owe something to Chuck Schumer. And
Well,
that is
not
why
yeah.
there's been a lack of a rebellion on the Senate side.
Well, but not that many of them. And the question is, are these eternal debts or
Yeah,
are these
no,
contingent debts
of
dependent
course.
on good behavior? You also don't see a lot of rally around the leader either. People are kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
keeping their own counsel.
I agree with that. Okay, so that's the Schumer part. Then we can talk about the deal itself. So as you said, the first thing is the Democrats made this all about these healthcare subsidies, and all they got was a future promise of a vote in December. Now, there was actually a vote as part of the process. I think it was Tammy Baldwin tried to add a 1 year extension of the subsidies
Right.
into the shutdown deal, and that lost on a straight party line vote, 47-53. So, what's going to be any different next month when they get this promised vote? The answer is pretty much nothing, in my view.
Mm.
And even if it was different in the Senate, the House isn't guaranteed to take it up. And even if it was taken up in the House, Donald Trump isn't going to sign it. So what are we talking about here?
Well, I think what's different is the context that a lot more information will come out in the next 6, 7 weeks where
Yeah,
people see what their premium increases are going to be. And this
that's
becomes more and more hazardous for Republicans. So yeah, the House is probably still going to stonewall. But you could see a few vulnerable Republicans in the Senate peeling off and voting for it. And then you've got a split on the Republican side.
right.
Or you could see the kind of deal that was always possible that the Republicans were not quite ready to make yet, where you agree with the Democrats to extend part of the tax subsidies for the least
Basically have
affluent.
an income cutoff that is
Yeah, an
higher than
income,
what it
yeah,
is now. Right
right.
now, so just to explain what we're talking about when we're talking about these subsidies, the way Obamacare was passed, subsidy recipients on the exchanges, that had a cliff at 400% of the federal poverty level. And so anyone making more than that got $0 in subsidies. The
Right.
way this was changed in these enhanced subsidies that were put into place by Biden in 2021 is that now for everybody along that chain, they pay no more than 8.5% of their income monthly in healthcare premiums, and they get subsidized on the rest of it. And so this made the Affordable Care Act truly affordable because people at 400% of the poverty level are not rolling in it, really. This is like middle class, maybe a little bit upper middle class, and they were getting hammered with huge bills for health insurance, which they're seeing right now. If they go to healthcare.gov or their state site, they're seeing 3,000 a month, I've heard in some states, 3,500 a month. And that's it's mostly those people who are getting hammered, and those people vote, right? These are not poor people necessarily. These are people at the middle of the income spectrum, maybe upper middle a little bit.
Yeah, but I want to reinforce a point that I made a moment ago. That's only 7% of the population.
It's 20 some million people.
Yeah,
That's right.
that's right. But there are 100 million other people, 200 million other people who are going to get premium increases. And it all
Right. I
blurs.
mean, this is what's interesting. The
Yeah.
raw premium increases for the next year are going up something like 18 to 20%.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
And that's without talking about the subsidies at all. The raw premium
Right.
increases are going up by that amount.
And
It's probably going to get worse because Medicaid, these sort of cuts sort of come into play in the next, a lot of them come in after 2026, but many of them are in place right now.
well,
And
and so
hospitals
here
are feeling the brunt. Yeah, go ahead.
so here's Trump trying to change the subject. That's always his modus operandi. And what's he changing the subject to? He's going to deal with the affordability crisis. So
Right.
people are worried about an increase in their health insurance that could be 20% at the low end, could be 100% at the high end, and he's going to take tariffs off bananas. You
Right.
know, that's
Right.
that's not exactly a winning politics.
Exactly. So, you do see there are some House Republicans who are in tight races who are worried about this. They have sent letters and said we need to extend this. It looks like, led by Catherine Clark, who's up in Massachusetts, they're going to file a discharge petition to extend the subsidies for 3 years. That's the last thing that I've heard. And dare Republicans to say no to it,
Yeah.
essentially. And if they don't need many, as you know, they only need a handful of Republicans to agree, and maybe they can get enough names on a discharge petition to pass
So
that.
let me go back to my, am I being too much of an optimist? It's possible to conclude that the Democrats splitting over the vote to reopen the House was an anomaly, that the trend, the broader trend,
Right,
is moving in the Democrats' direction. Witness Election Day, witness the politics of healthcare premium increases,
right.
witness Trump flailing around. And I think that's probably true. Um, uh,
Well,
Also, uh, affordability being center stage is also good for the Democrats because there's nothing Trump can do without
that's
disavowing his entire program
that's
that
right.
deals seriously with affordability. And we, as you know, David, this is your idea. We're going to be doing a special issue on pricing and
On
and
affordability and
yeah,
drivers of the
affordability.
affordability
Yeah,
crisis. Yeah,
yeah.
and that's coming in the next month or so. You'll see
But the
those
point
in a
is,
couple weeks.
if you drill down, a lot of it has to do with Trump's policies. That one of the offsets to the affordability crisis was the resurrection of antitrust.
Right.
Trump killed that.
He's put that in the locker.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to go back here. So, you know, I think absolutely politically raising the salience of healthcare and folding it into this larger affordability argument has absolutely been a winner for Democrats. We will see very quickly, actually, how the politics of the shutdown, whether or not they affected that in any way, because there is a special election coming in Tennessee, and it's a seat that it's a pretty pro-Trump seat. They basically cracked Nashville into three or four different pieces. And so it's a piece of Nashville and then a lot of Trump country. And that race, I believe it's December 2nd, is the general election. And there's an interesting candidate down there for the Democrats named Afton Ben. She's a state legislator, and her big policy. I'm writing about this for next week, but her big policy in office was to get rid of taxes on groceries, which exist in Tennessee and very few other states, and to pay for that through expanding the corporate tax in Tennessee. So, pretty clever idea, cut taxes on working people and pay for it with taxes on corporations. It'll be very interesting. What I'm hearing is that there's a lot of excitement down there. There's a poll that came out. This is a plus 22 Trump seat. The poll showed it a 6-point race. In the primary, there were almost as many Democrats that voted as Republicans. Uh, Low turnout off-year elections, special elections have seemed to favor Democrats. If Democrats flip a seat, and especially a very big-time Trump seat, in 2 weeks' time, that really does change some of the conversation, I think, in Washington.
Well, or even if they come very close, let's say there's a 16-point swing,
Right.
um,
Right. Yeah, because that means, the Republican majority is all but done in the House and maybe
right.
even in the Senate if it's that big a swing
And I
that we
think the
see.
the other thing to watch for, we keep waiting for rigged elections. We haven't seen them yet. So
Mhm.
this is a red state. Is this going to be a fair election?
Yeah, I mean, we'll certainly find out, but uh, I think that's an interesting aspect of this. Um, the other thing, though, I do want to talk about is it's all well and good to say the politics of healthcare seem to be trending in the Democrats' direction. The politics generally seem to be trending in the Democrats' direction. But the problem in March was they gave a bill to Trump and in terms of appropriations, and he didn't follow it. So he started withholding funds. He
Right.
he rescinded funds. He dismantled agencies. And we were back here in September saying, how can you make a deal with someone who isn't going to honor the deal and is just going to continue to do what he wants and aggrandize executive power and basically make Congress kind of an irrelevant institution? And there's very little in this bill. This was sort of the private conversation that Democrats were having. In public, they were saying this fight was all about health care. In private, they were saying, no, this is about forcing Trump to adhere to appropriations. And they did pass 3 of the 12 appropriations bills in this resolution, right? And those bills are bipartisan. They offer more money than Trump wanted to give some of these agencies. The problem is there's nothing stopping Trump from saying, I'm just not going to give you guys that money. I'm not going to give that agency that money.
Yeah.
And that, I think, was the real missed opportunity here because
Well,
the healthcare situation was going to play out. People were going to get, contacts in the mail or in their email that said, your health insurance is going way up. And that was going to cause outrage. And that was going to be something that Congress was going to have to respond to,
what
whether it was part of the shutdown or not. What was not going to get that outrage is the fact that Trump is basically ignoring Congress and doing whatever he wants on the budget. And that really hasn't changed.
But I do think that that fact may well stiffen the Democrats' spine when we have to do this all over again on the other 9 appropriations bills. So,
Right. They do get another chance.
to some extent, this was an inside game where several of the people who were promoting the compromise were chairs of appropriation subcommittees
Right.
for their Democratic counterparts. So their Democratic counterparts were very eager to be able to say, okay, we made progress on appropriations. But if the result 4 months from now, 3 months from now is, okay, we passed this, and then Trump didn't spend the money, it becomes very hard to argue, oh, let's just do it again.
Well, I mean, that's what happened in March, and they still did it again. So I'm a little bit skeptical of that. You're right. Gene Shaheen, who was kind of the ringleader of this whole thing, kind
Yep.
of recognized as the ringleader, is a senior Appropriations Committee member and helped negotiate these 3 deals, they
Yeah.
call it a minibus, these 3 bills appropriations bills that got passed into law. So yeah, she was more wedded to that than healthcare or anything else. But just getting these deals doesn't mean that Trump's going to actually follow them. So that's my fear. And here's the other point of that. So the other thing they got, and you alluded to this earlier, is they got this prohibition on reductions in force. That's the name for mass layoffs in the government. So not only did they say no money in this bill can be spent doing mass layoffs between now and the end date of this continuing resolution, which is January 30th, they said that holds even if the funding source for that agency doesn't come from the appropriations process. So that includes the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which Russ Vought is trying to fire everybody at. And they don't get their money from appropriations. But under this law that is now law, they can't fire CFPB employees between now and January 30th. And they also said anyone you fire during the shutdown has to be restored with back pay.
Right.
So here's my point. Democrats knew they knew the mechanism to stop Trump, to stop Trump from ignoring them. They knew how to use the power of the purse to say, actually, you're not allowed to spend any money if you're going to do something that we don't want. And that's how you use the power of the purse. You were in Congress, so you know this, that's how you use the power of the purse. And it almost was more frustrating to me that they did it in that one little instance. And why did they do it in that one little instance? Because Tim Kaine was the 60th vote for this thing, and he has a lot of federal workers in Virginia, and he wanted to protect them. So they knew how to do it to get Tim Kaine's vote, but they didn't extend that to the whole process so that their continuing resolution to fund the government actually means something.
David, I want to put in a plug for the prospect. Um, we've been talking for 40 minutes about how this actually went down. I haven't seen this analysis in the Times, the Post, the Journal. I mean, this is what you're so good at. This is what the prospect is so good at. And the every day you look at the mainstream papers, and they do it at such a superficial level of he said this, she said that, this is the outlines of the deal. They don't go beneath it to explain how it actually went down. Why do you think that is?
Because your political desks and your policy desks are separate. And when a political story breaks, they get the political people to write about it, and they don't know anything about policy. Or, what they know about is they have sources that tell them things, and then they put down what the sources say. That's my impression of it. I don't know if you agree,
Well,
but
I also think it's about a very superficial sense of what it takes to preserve access. I
right.
mean, if you or I, who work for this small, independent, progressive magazine, can pick up the phone and cultivate a source and get somebody to tell us what actually went down, God knows the New York Times can do it or the
Right.
Post can do it.
And
So
you
it's a
you certainly
difference.
had that nailed about Schumer's involvement, about what was on the table
Yeah.
uh, before anybody else, and nobody else was really writing about it, and it was prophetic because you didn't know at the time that we posted that on Saturday, you didn't know that they were about to actually consummate that deal the next day,
Yeah.
but you laid the groundwork for it.
Well, that's very kind of you. I mean, I think it's because when you work for one of the mainstream papers, you ask the wrong questions and you're just playing a lot of stuff at face value. Your Republican source says this, your Democrat source says that, you're on deadline. But Christ, you and I are on deadline all the time. I mean, I wrote that story in about an hour.
Right.
And it's a, it's good for the prospect, right? It's good that we have a reputation as people who do these explainer pieces that are based on real reporting, real enterprise. But God, you wonder what's the matter with these people.
Well, at least there is a way for people to get the information over prospect.org, and we have links to all the stuff we were just talking about. We have about 15 minutes left. I want to briefly mention that we have two events coming up next week that the Prospect is involved with. And they're going to be available here at our YouTube site. On Monday, we have Harold Meyerson, our editor at large, is moderating an event on the billionaires and the inability to rein in our massive inequality problem. And we're doing that in conjunction with a couple other groups. And that's going to be on Monday. And you can watch it here at the YouTube channel. We'll put a link to how you can sign up for that event to watch it virtually in the chat. On Tuesday, I am moderating a panel we did in association with Labor Notes, which is a lefty labor site. They posed the question to a lot of very smart labor organizers. What should labor's role be in the Trump era? What should organized labor be doing? Obviously, Trump has busted the normal means by which organizing happens through the National Labor Relations Board, and there have been a lot of bad Department of Labor rulings. So, what should organized labor do? And we got a lot of great responses. They posted labor notes. We also posted the symposium at prospect.org. And on Tuesday, we're going to extend that discussion and talk to some of the people who wrote pieces for that story. And I'm going to moderate that panel. And that's on Tuesday night, I believe 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 Pacific. So I invite you to check that out and you'll see all the information there. And it'll also be at prospect.org. Okay. So putting all that aside, so the question then becomes where the Democrats go from here. Obviously, we're starting to see all of these people get these massive spikes in their notices for health insurance for next year. There is this promise of a vote, but as we said, it's more of a promise than certainly not a promise to pass. And how, in your view, Bob, how do you think Democrats should approach this issue, this topic, and everything else going forward?
Well, I think you need to keep wailing away at health, but I also think to the extent that affordability has now become defined as the issue of the day and the issue of the 2026 election, um, Trump can't win that because for all of his skill at lying and its symbolic politics, it's the old story, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? And people know if their prices are going up. And if Trump tells them, oh, well, your prices really aren't going up. No, I'm sorry, my prices are going up. And the remedies that can actually address that are remedies that Trump can't embrace because they're antithetical to his whole program. So, the funniest thing about the tariff stuff, he imposes all these gratuitous tariffs, and then he says, well, I'm gonna keep your prices down by rescinding some of the very tariffs that I imposed.
Yeah,
Um,
that came out this week. So, he imposes these tariffs on bananas and coffee and things that we can't, just by nature of the climate, grow in the United States. And this is months later. I mean, these tariffs were imposed in what, April? So 7 months later, he realizes, oh, we can't actually grow any of these things. So that's just a tax on the American people. And we're going to take off, we're going to give you guys a break and take off the tariffs on coffee and bananas.
well,
Now,
and
this is a typical Trump tactic, and you've written about this, where he creates a problem and then he solves the problem by reversing it and then goes to the people and say, look how great I did solving
yeah,
this
but the
problem.
problem is there's more to price increases than coffee and bananas.
That's right.
And the price increases that are occurring all over the economy. I mean, for instance, um, private equity roll-ups that you've written about, where
Hmm.
private equity takes over a whole industry, and all of a sudden your vet bills are double what they used to be. Because he's in bed with these guys, because he's killed antitrust, he is ideologically and programmatically incapable of addressing a lot of the drivers of price increases that we're going to be writing about in
Yeah.
this next special
Well,
issue.
there's another really interesting thing that has recently happened on that front. And so, as you might recall, Trump, he kind of focused in on the price of beef. And he said, beef prices are really the only one that's high. You know, another thing Trump does is just lie. He says, like,
Oh,
oh,
right.
egg prices are cheap, and gas is $2 a gallon. None of that's true. But he's acknowledged and conceded that beef prices are too high. And the first thing he said is, I'm going to import 4 times as much beef from my friend Milei in Argentina. And ranchers in particular went ballistic, saying, what are you talking about? That's all that's going to do is destroy our livelihood. This is something that's absolutely beyond the pale. And he heard an earful from a lot of ranchers, and these are people in Trump country, right? And so just in the last week, he changed his tune on that. He didn't change the importation policy with Argentine beef, but what he did say is, I'm going to engage in an antitrust investigation of the middlemen meat packers who are driving up prices. Now, they are driving up prices, and this is why even if you import Argentine beef, you aren't going to see that change at the grocery store because the middleman controlled the supply of beef and the price that they sell to the retailers who then put it on the market. So he's getting to the right policy, but he's getting there after the Biden administration for 4 years was taking on the meat packers. And there are active lawsuits right now over price fixing in the meat packing industry. And the problem is, and you've written about this a lot, Biden was such a terrible messenger for his own policies that the ranchers don't even know that. And so they're looking at Trump saying, we're going after the meat packers and saying, finally, someone's going after the meat packers, when in reality, it was happening during the entirety of the Biden
Well,
administration.
also, if you look at the biggest drivers of inflation that people care about most, like housing, he's not doing anything serious about housing. He's not doing anything serious about student loans, except making it worse. And so this little flitting around the edges, it's not going to make a difference in the way people experience price increases in their own lives. And the other good thing about the affordability crisis is that it's created some unity among progressive Democrats and more centrist Democrats. So here's Mamdani, made it the centerpiece of his campaign. But here's Mikey Sherrill
Mm-hmm.
talking about utility rates.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the other good thing, just speaking as a progressive, is that if you're serious about taking on the underlying drivers of price increases, sooner or later you bump into the oligarchy. And you
Yep.
have to get serious about progressive remedies. So it's both good product differentiation between what the Democrats as a party uh, are offering versus what Trump is offering. It also plays to the advantage of progressive Democrats within the party because they're more serious about controlling the oligarchy.
Right. I do think that is the case. It's just interesting that antitrust becomes sort of the last refuge of the scoundrel. That all of a sudden Trump comes back to antitrust as a remedy for the political problem that he's involved in. But you're right that I mean the thing is to me that we've seen affordability become this very big buzzword in the Democratic Party over the last several months. And it means a lot of different things, I think, to different people. Because you can throw a lot of things into that affordability argument. You could throw the entire abundance supply side situation. That whole strategy, that's an affordability strategy. So is public provision of goods. That's also an affordability strategy because you have competition in the market and you have nonprofit companies that can, or the government itself that can provide these services and goods at a cheaper price. And then, and also the traditional regulatory approaches can be affordability. So it means a lot of things to a lot of different people. And so I think the challenge is going to be defining that affordability argument, and that's what I think we're going to try to do in our series is explain what the actual drivers of this crisis are, because you can't fix it unless you know what needs to be fixed.
Well, ideologically, it brings you back to a kind of New Deal conception of what the government is supposed to do to protect ordinary people from predatory capitalism. So take the case of electric rates. They're going through the roof, and one of the offsets was, well, at least we can go to town on solar. At least we can go to town on offshore wind. So what does Trump do? Because he's in bed with the fossil fuel industry, he cuts all these projects off after billions of dollars have been invested. I mean, you've got a lot of things that are not that complicated to explain that show up in people's utility bills, where the Democrats are actually on the side of helping regular people and the Republicans are on the side of helping the oil companies.
Well, I mean, not to totally give away the goose here, but just as a quick preview, we have a piece exactly on that, on electricity and utility rates, that's going to be in the next issue. And the real hidden driver of increases in electricity rates is regulatory capture. So we have the way that we've structured this, about 70% of customers get their electricity from investor-owned utilities, not public power companies, not their municipal power company, but investor-owned utilities. And there is supposed to be a safeguard to their profit taking in the form of public utility commissions, which regulate rates for electricity. And the problem is that they're hopelessly captured. And we go into that in much further detail in this upcoming story. But the short version is that they accept the arguments of the utility lobby, kind of, even though those arguments are patently insane in some ways.
You need Democrats who have the intellect and the ideological grounding and the skill as speakers to narrate this and
Yeah,
connect the dots of the various elements of this story and turn it into a winning politics. And
that's right.
some of them
Yeah.
are good at that, some of them aren't so good.
Yeah. And so that I think is going to be the task of the party over the next year. And, it'll remains to be seen whether Larry Summers will be a part of that. I mean, we'll find out what the Center for American Progress decides to do in the coming days here with the information that they newly have. So it'll be interesting to see. Maybe in the couple minutes we have left, you can just sort of any final words about things that you're thinking about coming up that we may see soon in the pages of
Yeah.
the prospect.
So I'm going to be working on all of the difficulty Trump is going to be having doing anything meaningful about price increases. I'm also going to be working on the fact that the Working Families Party, which started out as a party that could only work in fusion states,
Hmm.
has embraced a policy of endorsing candidates in other states and having people under the Working Families banner work as volunteers. And they had a number of successes in mayoralties. So
Mm.
that's where you get progressives energized. That translates into 2026. I'm going to be writing about that. Um, and
That's good. That's really interesting. They're active in a race here in California, even though there really isn't, a fusion ballot or anything here
but
in
what they've
California.
proved is you don't need a fusion ballot to have a Working
Right.
Families brand that is a valuable endorsement that brings out volunteers.
Yeah,
And
it's a great race in
really
the Central
important
Valley.
shift.
It's a swing seat race actually in the Central Valley where they have a nice populist candidate
Yeah.
who's of the district and is supported by the local parties, the county parties in the district. And they're going up against an assemblywoman who has been kind of a right-wing Democrat in the Assembly. She's taken PAC money from about 50 of the same corporations as the Republican incumbent has taken PAC money from in that race. So that's going to be a real bellwether
A
and,
very important
interesting.
offset to the power of corporate PACs within the Democratic Party.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that's about all the time that we have. Bob Kuttner, thank you so much,
Always a
as
pleasure.
always. And we do this every Friday at 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. We will put this on the website. So if you watch this and enjoy it, tell your friends, go to prospect.org and watch this. And we'll be back next Friday. Thank you very much for your time.